Saudi Arabia is trying to negotiate. Do you take the point that civilians and those who bravely fought for the overthrow of Omar al-Bashir are left out right now?
Thank you. I think when it comes to Sudan, I think the situation in Sudan is full of confusion, ambiguity, uncertainty, and chaos. It seems that the gloves are off between the army and the RSF with no clear sign of reconciliation. And the Sudanese people are definitely the main victims. To me, I see it to be almost like a zero-sum kind of game rather than a multifaceted one. And it is very unfortunate, and we would love for the Sudanese to get to the negotiating table and resolve their differences and find a solution to have a government that can actually serve.
Salman al-Ansari, right now the price of crude is 1/3 lower than it was at the same time 1 year ago. Where does that leave Saudi Arabia, and where does it leave it in its relationship, again, with those OPEC plus nations like Russia?
Yeah, I think Saudi Arabia, as a leader of OPEC and OPEC plus, it's very interested in stabilizing the oil market, as it has always been doing so. So I think the kingdom, with regards to the oil prices, it's not as it used to be when it comes to being heavily invested in only the oil prices. Why? Because 7 years ago, the Saudi economy was 92% dependent on oil. Right now, we are having 56% dependency. It is still a lot, but you see the difference. So I think Saudi Arabia is moving to modernize its economy. But I just want to actually comment about the comment that the previous one with regards to Saudi-US relations. And I think it has always been, and it will always be, the kingdom is going to be committed to this historic and strategic relations with the United States. We fought communism together, we fought terrorism together, and we stabilized the world economy together. So I think there is no doubt in my mind that the Saudi-US relationship will always be there, and it will always find a way through which they can actually complement each other. But to be honest and to be realistic, and I actually want to use the analogy of medicine, the Saudis have always been having an issue with the American policymakers, specifically the ones from the left, with regards to resolving the issues of terrorism in the Middle East. So for the last 4 decades, the Saudis wanted to use the American medicine to eradicate terrorism in the Middle East, but instead we've seen the US to be handing Iraq to Iran, and we've seen how they have been having the appeasement policy with Iran, etc. So that's why Saudi Arabia turned to China, and which is the Chinese medicine, which is a preventative one. It's not as effective to eradicate the causes of the issues, but we want to see if it's going to succeed or not. So that's the Saudi position with regards to having China to mediate between Riyadh and Tehran. But at the end of the day, as I said, Saudi-US relationship is there to stay, and each country needs each other. And we've seen also this, as your guest mentioned, in Sudan. Saudi Arabia managed to evacuate more than 8,000 evacuees from Sudan, up to 110 nationalities, from 110 nationalities. And Saudi Arabia, as we know, is the 3rd biggest humanitarian assistant in the world after the US and the UK, according to the United Nations, and the top donor of development assistance in the world, according to the UN. So Saudi Arabia has always been in the forefront when it comes to providing humanitarian assistance to others, but unfortunately we haven't seen this to be heavily covered in the media, because the media is mostly attracted to the ideas of and the notions of demonizing the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. But I think that's going to change, because facts are stubborn things, and the media should actually uphold the credibility.
Let's talk about your analogy about medicine with the Chinese.
Yeah, I think. Okay, here's the thing. I think there is a lot of exaggeration with regards to the National Security Advisor Jack Sullivan's meeting with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman here in Saudi Arabia. Some journalists are actually talking about Saudi Arabia as nothing but a wishful thinking for the time being. And I see this meeting to be mostly centered in 2 themes. One is Sudan, for sure, The second is the U.S. desire to have Saudi Arabia to join the I2U2 or U2I2. I don't know how they came up with that name. The group, as we know, has these 4 countries, but at the end of the day, Saudi Arabia is not having any normal relations with Israel. So how can they join this group? Maybe they can facilitate something for that group, that is possible, but not with high probability. I think, to answer your question, the U.S. is acting desperately to encircle China with different pacts and groups of countries. And in this case, definitely they want India to be more integrated strategically with the Middle East. And it is already integrated in the Middle East. So, but also to become an economic substitute.
Desperate? Salman,
I don't see this going to work. I don't think this is going to work. Because all the Middle Eastern countries, including Israel, enjoy strong relations with both India and China.
So why did Saudi Arabia recently purchase 121? That's a huge order. 121 Boeing Dreamliner aircraft.
As I said earlier, Saudi-US relationship is strong, but at the same time, we are not going to take side in such a manner that actually would jeopardize the trajectory of our relations with our strategic allies and partners, such as China or India or any other country. Saudi Arabia is not going to be taking side anymore. Saudi Arabia is an equalizer, is having this kind of idea of centricity, and it's not going to be a pawn, but a player on the chessboard.
Yasmin Farouk?
I think that's right.
I mean, I agree, especially with the last point